Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, folks. Michael Zuber, one rental at a time, back with his Wednesday expert, longest running expert, amazing individual, great investor, Anna Kelly.
So good to be here as always, Michael.
This is so much fun talking to you every week. I learn something. I get inspired to help more people. So thank you for this.
Oh, thank you.
Awesome. One thing I want to talk about here is this concept of being one deal away. One of the interviews I've spoken, one of the guests I've spoken with a couple of times over the last year just has this as a concept, right? You're one deal away, one deal away. And I think it's an interesting idea, right? Because again, for me, as somebody who used to sell software, we used to have this concept of POC, proof of concept. And that's not a sale, but that is some interest level, right? Because they may not be spending money, but they're spending time. So talk about when I say, hey, Anna, the concept of your one deal away, what does that mean to you? How does that hit? How does that feel?
Yeah, I think when you're beginning or you're beginning in a new niche, for example, it's a really important concept because so many people, it's that I've heard it said the law of the first deal, right? If you're just thinking about it and you're like, I'd love to buy my first single family, or then it's like, I'd love to buy my first 4-unit building, or I'd love to joint venture an RV park. And then I'd love to syndicate a 200-unit deal. Every one of those things, needs a giant leap of faith to get to the next thing, right? But we're never ready for that thing till we've done the stuff before, right? So if you haven't started, really, one deal away could create a couple $100 a month extra in your pocket to give you a little bit of margin that you're not living check to check and you have a little bit more freedom, right? Mm-hmm. One deal. You go from that one deal to the second one, and it's that little bit more margin. So maybe you're $400 a month from being able to cover your expenses because you got debt and a car payment. One deal will cover part of that. Then it's one more deal will do the next thing. It'll make you technically a break even, right? Mm-hmm. Then that next deal, maybe it's the 4-unit that gives you $1,000 a month extra in your pocket. You're one deal away from finally being able to take a family vacation, right? So when I think of one deal, and this is again off the cuff, it's what could that next deal do for me financially? And what will it allow me to do with my life that is the thing that I really want to do it for? Because it's not about just one more unit or one more cash. It's what does that allow you to do with your life? So if I'm thinking I'm one deal away from this, it's if I do this, this is how my life would change. So it's worth taking the steps to do that one more deal. Mm-hmm. And just put your pressure on yourself for that one. Don't put the pressure on this one's going to be a waste of time because I really want to do 200-unit deals. Mm-hmm. Put the pressure on I'm one deal away from growing as a player, from growing my life, having extra cash flow. Let's just take it one deal at a time. Mm-hmm. Let's get there and then see what I've learned from it and what I'm ready to do the next deal and what that deal will do for me. So that's how I would think about it.
Yeah, I love all of that. For me, the other thing I think about is, being one deal away, or the idea of a proof of concept, POC, that I used to kind of live by. Mm-hmm. You really find out if it is for you. Because one of the issues with the POC is the person plays with the software, or in this case, a rental unit, and hates it.
Yes.
It's possible, right? It's like, hey, it's not what we thought. Yeah, it's technically what you told us, but it's not how our job works. It would slow us down, which was the kiss of death with software, right? Because software is supposed to be a positive return on investment, all of that. But yeah, one of the things you could find out when you buy your first rental house is you hate it. You don't for whatever reason, right? You don't like dealing with tenants, or it's a big hassle, or whatever. I mean, that's one of the outcomes that's possible. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the question is it really the problem with the software, or is it that you need to become more proficient in using the software, right? Mm-hmm. So even with the rental, you're not going to know till you at least buy it, right? So once you buy it, I would say, even if you hate it, before you decide I'm out, this didn't work, I don't like it, it could be the best thing that's ever happened to you, but you need to tweak how you're owning it and how you're using it. So for that person that says, I'm too busy, I'm exhausted, they were like me that started off with a job and then decided, let's be a sweat equity landlord and paint our own units and manage our own people. Like it was like pulling teeth. It was not fun, right? But we had to do it to learn, right? And then the next one, it's like, okay, we need to hire a property manager. We need to do something different with this one. So you've got to buy it in order to figure out what works, what doesn't, and then how to tweak it, and how to buy the next one differently and more proficiently.
Yeah. When I talk about kind of tying all this together, the importance of getting to 4, right? I think 4 rental properties changes your future because, and I tell people you could stop at 4, right? If you get to 4 and you stop, you won, right? You won the game. You're in the Hall of Fame, whatever you want to just play with this player analogy, because then you could focus on paying them off or whatever you choose, whatever fits your life.
Mhm.
Because then you're probably going to be a millionaire, right? No matter where you buy them in 30 years, unless you're buying really cheap stuff, you probably are going to be a millionaire in 30 years. So, and have cash flow and then Social Security and 401k and pension
Right.
or whatever else. So it's going to make your life better.
Yeah.
But you're right. After the first one, right? If you're going to do sweat equity, buy junkers and it's not you, well, then do you pay a property manager versus self-management? Do you buy turnkey? Do you buy new builds? Maybe you hate, there are people that, and I bought them. I bought homes that were built in the 1920s. Those are different, right? They're weird layouts, really small rooms. But maybe you want to buy new builds. I mean, yeah, you find out once you've got that proof of concept or that first deal.
Right. Absolutely. You just have to get started, right? You have to get started. You'll never know until you do it. And then every time you do the next thing, you say, okay, could I open up the next app? Can I pay for the next level of software that's going to help me? And a lot of times people buy singles and then you realize this is really good. I'd love to, spread it out across more doors. Maybe I buy my first 4-unit building, at that point. And it's not very much different. And it's an easier leap to that next deal, that next one, because you've already kind of built the foundation of becoming proficient with the other stuff.
That's actually, I didn't know I was going to go here, but I'm going to ask it anyway. So you've bought single family homes. You've bought 4 units, which is the largest residential. You've bought small commercials, right? 10, 20 unit deals. And you've been a part of 100-unit deals, big ones. I want to ask, is it true what they say? It's just as easy to close a 100-unit deal as a single family home? Because I've never bought anything that big.
No.
Oh, I'm so happy you said that.
There's a lot more complexity. Now, what is true is that if I have all the investors I need to close down, we just finished a 400-unit apartment building, $40 million deal. We did a 500-unit apartment building, $80 million deal. Well, I have to do a lot of work to get all the investors to come up with a multi-million-dollar down payment for that deal. So there's work involved there that if I go buy my own single family house, I don't need other investors, right? There's more complex loans to some extent. But what happens is the bigger units you do, once you become proficient in it, if I have all the investors line up and we all have the net worth and liquidity that we need, the time frame to close a large deal isn't a whole lot different than the time frame to close a small deal, but the number of people needing to be fully engaged and on board at the entire time is exponentially more. So yes, I can close a 400-unit deal maybe in 60 to 90 days, and I can close a single family in 60 days. But is it easier? No, it's tremendously more complex to do it. I think the other thing, just to kind of, in fairness to some that say that, if I'm going to, the time it takes me to do a 20 or 30-unit deal, it's going to take me about the same amount of time to do a 200 or 300-unit deal. So once you're into multifamily that's commercial and you've got that layer of complexity, it's like, why buy, 10, 20-unit deals when I can buy one 200-unit deal? If all of the things were equal, then yes, you'd want to go straight for the 200. But you better be proficient on having done it before on smaller deals. If you try to go, I'm going to be a single family home investor and tomorrow I'm going to be a GP on a 400-unit deal, it's probably one of the dumbest, riskiest things you could ever do, unless you're one little piece and one little player and you've got a huge support team doing everything else.
Yeah, I think that's really wise. But I will agree that in my little world, again, I've never raised, I've never done any of those things. For me today, looking at a 20-unit, which is the biggest I bought, and a single family home, it's essentially the same process. But again, it's my money, right? So it's right. That's
right. Yeah, it does take me just as long to buy a vacation home one as it does for me to buy a 20-unit property.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
How about operationally? Again, I've never operated or been a part of operating hundreds of units versus and again, remember, I don't self-manage, I pay someone. So for me, operationally a 20 unit, I guess in a 20 unit building, I probably spend 20 minutes a month more, because it's just like the different tenants didn't pay, maybe repair reviews, before and after pics, make sure nobody's stealing from me. So maybe operationally it's a little more intensive, but you kind of expect that, but not a lot.
The only real difference is, let's say a 20 unit versus having 20 single family homes is usually, if you have a single family home, your tenant's responsible for lawn care and snow removal and that kind of stuff, basic little maintenance. When you're in a multi, you're usually handling lawn care, snow removal. Tenants fight with each other over noise and smoking and parking and those kind of things. So it's really the people problem, because they're all neighbors in close quarters, takes a little bit more time. But fundamentally, the amount of time you spend on things is not much different. With systems and automation, it's not very much different. But I can buy a 20 unit with less transactional costs than buying 20 single individual homes.
For sure.
I don't have all those separate closings and all the separate title work and all of that kind of stuff. So it's still, probably bang for your buck, still better to buy an 8 unit or a 20 unit than 8 individual houses or 20 individual houses. But that efficiency isn't the only reason that you buy multis versus singles. There's benefits to singles as well, that we can talk about another time.
Yeah, I guess the last thing I want to ask is, so in my area, my average apartment turnover is about 24 months. I think it's 27 now. In my houses is almost 8 years. Do you see kind of similar gaps with turnover?
Yes. You're definitely going to have more turnover in apartments, because it's generally people that are kind of at a transient point in their life. We have some that have been there for years and decades, right? They're never going to buy a house. But a lot of times, a single person gets roommates, and then roommates split up, and then they move in with a boyfriend, and then they split up, and then they get married and buy a house. So there's more reasons for people to move before they're stable with, 2 workers and kids and all that kind of stuff and want to buy a house. So they're just moving a lot more frequently in apartments than they do in a house.
Very cool, Anna. This has been an amazing conversation. I love episode number 1. That was fun to watch. Anna, how can people find you?
Great. You can follow me here every Wednesday. You can find me on all of social, Anna Kelly, REI Mom, and my website, reimom.com. And if you are one of those investors who wants to invest in large multifamily deals passively and you're accredited, find me on greaterpurposecapital.com for investment offerings.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Anna.
Thank you so much.